This is Brian, ScreenFiles.com in review. And what I'm looking at today is 2022's Prey, directed by Jon Trachtenberg. And no joke, this is probably the best movie with the Predator yet made. Though that comes with some caveats. For instance, if you like your Predator movies big, dumb, and explodey, it's probably not going to work for you because it takes time to build character. And that's something that no Predator movie really had prior to this. Because as much as you may enjoy the first Predator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I personally don't think those are people in that movie. They're sort of people, they're outlines of people, but they're not actual humans that feel things. They're essentially just cannon fodder for this creature, the Predator. And it's entertaining, it's a fun movie, but let's be honest, it's not that great a movie. And the best thing about it is the introduction of the Predator, which is a great looking character in that movie. And I should also mention that in Prey, they go back to that look. He's very lean, as opposed to the version of the Predator that appeared in AVP, Paul W.S. Anderson's movie, which looked like football players, way too bulky. Though, interestingly enough, the face of the Predator resembles the Super Predator from The Predator, which is an awful movie. And they've done something with this movie that I've been hoping that the producers of these films would do, which is to place them in different time periods. So this movie takes place in the, I believe, mid to late 1700s and revolves around the first encounter of a predator with people. And that happens among the Cherokee Indians. One of the people who discover this creature is named Naru, and she wants to be a warrior, though traditionally, apparently based on a movie, women in Cherokee society don't play that role. So she's more human than anything else, but she's really determined and she keeps practicing. Her brother, Tabe, is very much a warrior, and he loves her, and he oftentimes will let her accompany him. He respects her, though still doesn't quite believe in the idea that she could be a warrior. The movie has an authenticity that is wonderful to see in its depiction of Cherokee people. And I think there's a missed opportunity here, though. They should have had the language spoken be Cherokee. There are moments that Cherokee is actually spoken. I should say whatever language the Cherokee people speak is called. I don't know that off the top of my head. Though, I think the movie would have been much more better because they worked so hard to bring about a truthfulness to its depiction of these people that if the entire movie were dubbed in Cherokee, I would have really appreciated that. Now, I don't know if the actress that played Naru could speak the language of the Cherokee people, though the actor who played Tabe definitely could. During an interview for Prey, he spoke Cherokee to illustrate certain points, so he definitely knew the language. And I think it would have been so wonderful if they would have actually spoke Cherokee and dubbed it into English. It would have gave it a veracity that it kind of lacked, though that's just me. This is going back to the beginning, pardon the pun, of the Predator saga. Though I didn't like that they said that this was the first time that the Predator appeared, because you could take that character and insert him in any time period. Hell, I wouldn't mind a movie of the Predator fighting fucking dinosaurs, for Christ's sake. It could be potentially really interesting. So based upon the promotional material for this movie, this was the first time the Predator appeared on Earth. And the design of the creature is interesting. I mentioned earlier that visually speaking, his face looked kind of similar to the Super Predator, though his weaponry was, compared to modern interpretations of the character, somewhat primitive. And that's good because it shows an evolution of the character. And he had a weapon that was kind of like guided arrows, which was cool. And it implies that they've been watching people before. And they modeled this weapon after those that they saw the native peoples use, which was a nice touch. It's also particularly violent for a Predator movie. And in fact, I would argue that it's more violent than the original movie. Though its violence is oftentimes CGI assisted, it looks pretty good, but you can tell that some of it is CGI. It's less a criticism in this case, because there's some really gnarly violence, and so it certainly would make it easier to pull off than dealing entirely with prosthetics. Though getting back to the story, Naru, working to be a warrior, notices a print, and she doesn't know what it is. They assume it's a bear, except that it's only on 2 legs, which a bear can do, but they only do that for so long. It's not naturally the way a bear moves. And eventually they come to encounter this predator who goes about slaughtering these native warriors, and Naru is left alone to defeat it. What I enjoyed was also that they didn't do the same things to beat this predator that they did in the original Predator and Predators, which is to say, coat the person in mud to mask their heat signature so that the predator can't see them via its technology. They didn't go that route, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And the way she actually defeats this thing works really, really well. It's very clever. And some people may seek to attack this movie based upon a female empowerment angle. And that's just kind of dumb, to be totally honest. Because no one calls Star Wars a male empowerment story, which in some ways is very similar to Naru's story, in that she's trying to prove herself to people who don't believe that she has capabilities that she knows she has. So it's not that much different from Star Wars and numerous other movies, which are not called male empowerment stories. Those are just called adventures. So this double standard that people use when they're referring to something just because a woman is the focus of it is really tiring, boring, and just nonsense. This is a great little action movie. It's well acted. Let me take that back. It's extremely well acted. Far better acted than any of the movies in the series. Perhaps with the exception of Predators, though those characters were written very thinly, they're acted very well. In the case of Prey, they're written well and they also act well. So it kind of tops it in some ways. It's well done. I think it runs about an hour and 40 minutes or so. So it's a relatively brief watch, but it's well worth it. And as I said earlier, if your enjoyment of the Predator movies comes from lots of explosions and dudes showing off their muscles, you're not going to like this movie that much. The Indians depicted aren't hulking he-men. Actually, most of them are very lean and sinewy. It's a great word. And so you're not going to get that if that's what you're looking for. What you will get, if you give it half a chance, is probably the best movie involving the Predator yet. Now, what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow.